Dr. Nick, Incrementalist, Osteoporosis, Take 4. Hi, I'm Dr. Nick and I'm the Incrementalist. Today we're going to be talking about osteoporosis. What is osteoporosis? Well, it's porosity of the bones. The normal cycle of bone usage in the body is we regenerate. So our body's constantly making bone. In fact, that's the reason if you get a fracture, you're actually quite lucky. We can put it in a cast and it will repair itself. It produces the bone. But what happens as we age is we decrease our capacity in terms of making bone, and as we age, that means that we get less and less production of bone, and it decreases the density and ultimately the strength of our bones. So osteoporosis is that reduction in the density of bones. Unfortunately, it affects women more than men, although men are not safe from it. And in particular women post-menopause. So if you're menopausal, you're very likely or more likely to have osteoporosis. You may have also heard of osteopenia. That's the intervening point between normal bones and osteoporosis. So you've lost some density, but the density isn't bad enough to cause a decrease in the strength of bones. So that's good news, but it's a warning sign. So how do we diagnose it? Well, we diagnose it with something called a DEXA scan, something you should go and discuss with your doctor. If you're at risk, I would advise you to go and talk to your doctor and assess whether you ought to be measuring yourself for osteoporosis with a DEXA scan. And quite frankly, for anybody that may be at risk, I think this is really important, because even if you don't have it, it's great to have a baseline so that you know in the future if you are going to suffer from it. Let's talk about what we do about it next. Okay, so now that we've established what osteoporosis is, what do you do about it? Well, the first thing that's important is establishing a baseline. Do you have osteoporosis? Do you have osteopenia? And either way, whether you have it or you don't, I think all of the guidance in terms of how you manage this is going to be important, because we're all at risk from it. And that's true for the men as well. It's not just menopausal women. So what are the main intentions for osteoporosis management? Well, essentially it's to reduce the bone loss. And we can do that simply by influencing our diet and also exercise. When it comes to diet, people are very familiar, or typically very familiar, with the calcium-bearing products that they're listed in many of the supermarkets. So a lot of the cheeses, the dairy products are well known for having calcium, but it's not confined to that. So in fact, almonds have a lot of calcium. Spinach has a tremendous amount of calcium, as do many of the beans. So you're not confined to eating dairy products, but you do need to make sure that you've got enough calcium, vitamin D, and indeed magnesium in your diet. Then when it comes to exercise, I'd suggest you look at the video that I'm putting together on lower and upper body strength. Those are one of the key elements of reducing any of the risk from fracture by improving your overall strength. And in fact, if you do weight-bearing exercises, that's going to improve your bony mass. So it's going to reduce the impact and make it less likely that you're going to suffer from fractures. And then the final element is medications, and mostly we hope to avoid that, but what do? Well, they focus on reducing the loss of bone, and also in some instances they'll try and increase bone production, but hopefully that's not something you have to, and you can manage most of this with lifestyle changes. So incremental improvements for you. Get a baseline study, talk to your physician, get the DEXA scan and establish whether you have osteoporosis or not. And then secondly, start thinking about diet and exercise and medications should you need them. Either way, it's something that is essentially silent, so you can't just ignore this. It's important to include your management and be proactive about this. If you like this video, if I could ask you a favor, if you'd like it in the section below. If you've got suggestions, I'd appreciate them. Send them on and I'll try and cover some of those other areas. Otherwise, I'm Dr. Nick. I'm the Incrementalist. Don't let perfection stand in the way of progress.